Welcome back to Master Your Money and Mindset. I'm your host, Elizabeth Hiza, Chief Marketing Officer at the Barnum Financial Group. Today's show is right at the cross point between money and mindset. Today's focus is exactly why we brought this show to you. It's because we are talking about the money advice that everybody knows, but nobody follows. And nobody follows this money advice, not because it's complicated, but because it's familiar and too simple. We are talking today about the gap between what you know and what you do. And this is the exact cross section between how you manage your money and what your mindset around that money is. See, most people don't struggle financially because they don't know enough. They struggle because they don't consistently do the things they already know they should be doing. So we all know we should save more. We know we should carry less debt. We know we should spend less than we earn. We know we should have an emergency fund, and we know that emergency fund should cover at least 6 months worth of expenses. But yet, many of us still find ourselves without a significant savings, with consistent debt, with spending sometimes as much as we earn or more than we earn, and without an emergency fund. And this is because financial success isn't built on information alone. It's built on behavior. And behavior is influenced by your thoughts. That's where the mindset part comes in. So today, I'm going to talk about 4 pieces of money advice that almost everyone has heard before, but why so few people actually follow that advice, in hopes that you will pick one of these pieces of advice and flip it so that you will actually implement it. So before we dive into the 4 principles, let's make the acknowledgement that we live in a world overflowing with financial information. So you can find anything everywhere. With a few taps of your phone, you can find budgeting tips to investing advice, to retirement calculators, to money podcasts, whatever it is, you can find it pretty quickly. So information is not scarce. Action is scarce. The challenge isn't usually figuring out what to do. The challenge is consistently making choices today that will benefit us tomorrow. And that's where the mindset enters the conversation, because personal finance is rarely about math. It's often about habits, emotion, and delayed gratification. People typically don't appreciate trade-offs, meaning the trade-off is if you have a significant amount of your money in savings, that means you did not spend a significant amount of that money. If you didn't spend that money, you chose to go without. And what that without means is dependent on how your family operates. But if, in my world, if I want to save an extra couple of $100s in a given month, that means I have to forego going out to eat as much as we do. That means I have to forego one click on Amazon for stuff I probably don't need. That means I have to forego stopping at Starbucks or grabbing fast food when it's easier. I have to make myself uncomfortable now to be more comfortable later. That's what delayed gratification is. And most people don't really want to do that. And I could certainly understand why. But what is that costing you? So principle number 1 is to always pay yourself first. None of these principles are going to be new to you. I guarantee you've heard them from either a financial professional, you've certainly heard them on this podcast, or any article you read about good money habits will always start with pay yourself first. So it means that before you spend any money on wants, before you upgrade something, before you make a discretionary purchase, you set aside money for your future. Now, this is, again, very widely given advice. I think the subjectivity in that statement is defining what is a want versus a need. Upgrading your cell phone, is that a want or a need? You need a phone, but do you need the latest version of it? Food. Like I said, going to the grocery store, that's certainly a need, but how much you purchase at the grocery store can easily turn into wants. So really getting granular with what is needed versus what is wanted, and where you could be rationalizing those two things, where you could be rationalizing some wants that you're putting into a needs category. So most people intend to save what is left over at the end of every month. The problem is that for most households, there's very little left over. And that's why automation is so powerful. That's why we say pay yourselves first, because our intention is certainly to put anything extra into savings. But how often does that really happen? Especially when you see the money in the account and you're driving past the Starbucks and you want a $7 coffee. It becomes really easy to convince yourself that you need that coffee and that it's okay because the money is sitting in your account. So savings don't happen automatically, which is why you have to force them to happen. So once you set it and forget it, once you set that transaction, once you set a certain amount of money to move out of checking into savings or out of checking into a brokerage account, whatever it is, you're no longer relying on your motivation or willpower. You've just created a system for yourself. And the system almost always outperforms intention. So what that means is the transaction you set up will never fail you. Versus if you try to do this on your own with just discipline, you may be good for a few weeks, you may be good for a few months, but there will come a time where you will forget to save or you will overspend and you'll have no money left over for savings. So you want to, as soon as the money gets in your account, get it out. Dedicate a certain amount of money every month to go into savings. That's you paying yourself. And then you could spend the rest of the month without guilt. Now, that's not new advice. We talk about that all the time. You've certainly heard that before. What's stopping everybody from doing it? Most likely, what we hear is that there's none left over. I don't have any extra for savings. I don't know if that's true or not. You have to do a budget, but I would venture to guess that you could start really small and you could start with an automatic savings transaction of $10 a week. Try it as little as that to start. And I bet you in a few months, you won't even notice. Then increase it to 20, then increase it to 30. And before you know it, you'd be surprised how you'll adjust and you'd be surprised how quickly that money compounds into a savings account. The second principle, which we always also talk about, but nobody ever does, is to build your emergency fund. People hate talking about this. It is the most unsexy topic in our world, but life never cares whether we're prepared or not. So cars are going to break down. Medical bills are going to happen. Unfortunate and unforeseen job changes are going to happen. Familial situations are going to arise. But when there's no emergency fund in place, these setbacks often become debt problems, and they are sure big enough to set you off course. So the purpose of an emergency fund isn't to earn a great return. It's to create stability. It's to give you options. It's to buy time when life doesn't go according to plan. It's to make a financial setback an inconvenience versus a catastrophe. Most people delay building their emergency fund because they think they need to save a huge amount immediately, but that's not true. The goal isn't to have, however much, in an emergency fund overnight. The goal is to make small progress every day and to do your best and not to touch that money. So even if your emergency fund right now is only $1,000 or $2,500 or $5,000, that can be helpful when a major setback occurs. And that's all you need to get started. Principle number 3 is living below your means. This is definitely the hardest for everybody. We happen to live in a world that is constantly encouraging us to spend more. Wherever we look, we're being shown what we don't have and what we should buy next. I was just in a conversation with somebody who was talking about how Instagram gets them every day with purchasing things off of Instagram because they do such a great job of putting things in front of them where you think you need them and you can't live without them. So, but as your income increases, your spending often increases right alongside it. And that's what we refer to as lifestyle inflation. And I always remember this when we had young children and they were in daycare. And my husband and I would say, oh man, when these daycare bills are done, we are just going to be rolling in it. We're just going to have so much money to spend. But sure enough, by the time that happened, our expenses already increased. We were already on to the next, and that daycare money was already spent someplace else. So we did not feel this great surplus when those daycare bills stopped because we already had that money spent. When the raise comes, when the bigger car comes, when you upgrade your home, when you have higher monthly expenses, and suddenly you notice that despite earning more and bringing in more, the financial stress hasn't disappeared. So living below your means is not about depriving yourself. It's, again, just about being intentional. It's making sure your spending reflects your priorities instead of your impulses. So the goal isn't to spend as little as possible. The goal is to just make conscious choices about where your money goes. And again, a lot of people don't do that because it's work. And typically it causes some sort of pain, the pain of not wanting to deprive yourself that coffee, the pain of, staying in a house that needs a lot of work versus moving into a larger one. A lot of people, and myself included, don't want to either face those uncomfortable truths or certainly don't want their life to be impacted with the cost of saving money. And it's not, we're not here to tell you what decisions to make, but just to be intentional about what those decisions are and how they will or won't affect your finances. And then principle number 4 is to do everything you can to avoid unnecessary debt. So debt isn't always bad. Mortgages are great. Business loans are great. Some educational debt can help, increase future earnings. But consumer debt or credit card debt used to finance a lifestyle or to finance, a renovation, that can become a major obstacle with respect to building your wealth. So a big mindset shift around debt is learning to distinguish between wanting something and being ready to afford it. We, like I said in the previous living below your means, living in a culture that makes it incredibly easy to buy now and pay later. The challenge is that future payments eventually become present obligations. Every dollar committed to debt repayment is a dollar that can't be used for saving, investing, or creating flexibility. So sometimes the most powerful financial decision is to just wait. And like I said, it's not our job to tell you what to spend and what not to spend, but waiting 24 to 48 hours to see if you still really want to make that purchase is always a very good best practice. If you decide that you do want to make the purchase, ask yourself, how am I going to pay for this? If I have to finance this, is it worth it? Is it worth the interest? Can I get a lower interest? Just walk yourself through the entire payment process. Not just covering the initial down payment or getting through the first few months of payments. So what's interesting about all 4 of these principles is that none of them are new. Most of you have heard them before. Paying yourself first, building an emergency fund, living below your means, and avoiding unnecessary debt. The challenge has never been awareness. The challenge is action. Financial success is usually less about knowing a secret and more about repeating a few basic behaviors over and over again. So the fundamentals aren't exciting, but they work. So as we wrap up today, I encourage you to ask yourself a simple question is, of those 4 principles, which one do I already know but haven't fully committed to? Not which one you've never heard or not which one sounds good, but which one do you know you should be doing, but you have resistance to or you keep postponing? Because often the best next step in improving your financial life isn't learning something new. It's just acting on something you've already known all along. Like always, thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Master Your Money and Mindset. Until next time, take care of your money and your mindset. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for listening to Master Your Money and Mindset. You can find these episodes on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed what you heard. You can follow Barnum Financial Group on LinkedIn and Instagram. Thanks so much.
All opinions expressed by the program participants are solely their current opinions and do not reflect the opinions their respective parent companies or affiliates or the companies with which the program participants are affiliated. Investments or strategies mentioned in this program may not be suitable for you, and you should make your own independent decision regarding them. This material does not take into account your particular investment objectives, financial situation, or needs, and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. You should strongly consider seeking advice from your own investment advisor. Securities and investment advisory services offered through qualified registered representatives of MML Investor Services, LLC. Member SIPC, 6 Corporate Drive, Shelton, Connecticut, 06484, telephone number 203-513-6000.